welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Don't forget to go to www.tarpley.net, tarpley.net, and see the array of books that are available various places on the Internet. That would include Surviving the Cataclysm, Your Guide to the Greatest Financial Crisis in Human History, 2009, second edition. Obama, the Postmodern Coup, The Making of a Manchurian Candidate, 2008, and even more recent on Obama, Barack H. Obama, The Unauthorized Biography. You can also find those in French, in at least the 9/11 book, the 9/11 Synthetic Terror, Made in USA. You can find books there, various ones in Japanese, German, French, Italian, Spanish. Do take a look and buy those books. You can't follow any of this action, especially on the economics, without Surviving the Cataclysm, and idem for other areas. Now, let's look at Robert Fisk, The Independent. Okay, we've described this world campaign, really, undoubtedly masterminded by the British and joined in, of course, by people who have absolutely justifiable and righteous resentment against the dollar, people who don't want to see all their financial holdings destroyed. So Robert Fisk now writes a story saying that China, Russia, the Gulf states, that would be Saudi Arabia, plus places like Oman, Sultan Qaboos, so-called because he always comes at the end of the train, and Kuwait, the Emir of Kuwait. You fought and died for the Emir of Kuwait in 1991, and this is his thanks. How interesting. This is Saab el-Turbo of this degenerate slave-holding family there in Kuwait. So Saudis, Oman, Kuwait, Russia, China, allegedly, possibly Japan, possibly France, possibly others, interest from Brazil and India, according to some reports. And they're talking about easing out of the dollar. Now, this is, on the one side, historically necessary. It is going to be impossible to maintain a functioning world monetary system based on the exclusive role of the dollar as a reserve currency. So that part is clear. The big question is, how do you do it? How do you get the transition from a dollar-based system to a polycentric, multipolar financial system? What should the characteristics of that be? It's clear what the British want. The British want a maximum of chaos, a maximum of cataclysm, a maximum of disorder. And again, they would like to, first of all, shift the burden of the depression onto the dollar, and once the dollar had been smashed, then shift it onto the euro, and then proceed around the world. And the pound, even though it's in this absolutely sickly, mummified form that we see today, this withered mummy of British imperialism, the pound, would be the only one left standing. So, first of all, to friends in China, Russia, Japan, France, and the Arab world in general, don't go on the British method. This has all got to be negotiated, because if you do this right, you can get a new world monetary system from which everyone in the world will benefit. If you do it wrong, you got a practical guarantee for World War III. That is essentially what happened in 1931 to 1939. Right? The British pound was the center of the only monetary system in the world from the end of the Napoleonic Wars until September 1931, when the British went off the gold standard with Lord Montagu Norman of the Bank of England, as we have stressed. That destroyed the only world monetary system that there was. It shut down world trade, and of course, as we see, and you can read all of this in Surviving the Cataclysm, when goods cannot cross borders, armies soon will. So the dollar, whether you like it or not, is the only existing system. We would now have to look towards the characteristics of the next system, but the first thing to do is keep the British out of the plot. Don't let the British in. They are the wreckers. In particular, as we see, in 2007, Gordon Brown and company kept the British interest rates very high, trying to attract hot money. They were too weak to succeed, and this is what blew Northern Rock. That's where the world financial crisis began. The objective potential undoubtedly there, but subjectively the way it happened was the British trying to assert global financial dominance, and instead they were too weak to do it. Northern Rock blew, and with that, the world banking crisis was on. It was a few months after that you got the fall of Bear Stearns. 2008, we've talked about this, Barclays pretended that they were going to buy Lehman Brothers until the very last minute when this British regulator that nobody's ever heard of, British regulator is a contradiction in terms. They don't have a regulatory regime after Thatcher. It's all liberalized and monetarized. The idea was that Barclays was supposed to buy Lehman, and it got to be essentially to the 11th hour and 59 minutes, and the answer came from London, no. So there was no way to organize an orderly absorption of Barclays Bank, Lehman Brothers by Barclays in the same way that Bear Stearns had been absorbed by J.P. Morgan Chase. So we've also got now 2009, what looks like a British push to bring down the dollar. Now, rather than thinking in terms of this, let's think about what the new reformed system ought to look like. Iran has now switched to euros for oil purchases. Fine. You've got, however, the idea that the new currency will be a basket of currencies with gold involved. Now, depending how you want to do this, this can be fine. Let me just say the people in Saudi Arabia around Prince Bandar, as we've been reporting, are undoubtedly worried that Obama-Brzezinski are going to sponsor a color revolution in Saudi Arabia to overthrow them in the same way that they're supporting a color revolution in Iran. I recommend the following. You got to learn the lessons of Bretton Woods, the success of Bretton Woods, and also some of the things which were failures. In particular, the International Monetary Fund is an aspect of Bretton Woods, although it's been perverted over the years. You're going to have to include the yen, the euro, the dollar, of course, the ruble, an Arab regional currency, which according to some of these reports is coming up, a Latin American regional currency, and others, the main trading nations of the world. These have got to be linked together by a system of fixed parities. The governments must create bands of oscillation among these main currencies. This is what worked very well between 1944 and 1971-73 with the Smithsonian parities there attempted at the end. You've got to incorporate gold in the system, but you're not limited to gold. This is the terrible mistake that the gold bugs would make. If you try to limit the issuance of currency to gold, you'll find that if you owe $10 today, you owe $10,000 tomorrow because the world is awash in debt. What you need is gold settlement, gold clearing, not a gold coin standard, but a gold reserve standard or a gold settlement standard. These distinctions are made clear in Surviving the Cataclysm. It's a reality principle. It means that if the U.S. is buying all this stuff from China and has a very negative balance of trade with China, then the U.S. will have to ship gold. It's a way to start producing things at home to earn the foreign exchange you need. We should obviously see any attempted monetary reform as the relaunching of world trade. World trade is now down 35 to 40% from where it was last year. German exports, this is a classic export-dependent economy, down almost 20% from the year before. The whole point of this is to relaunch world trade, not in terms of consumer goods. We don't need beer coming from Australia. It's not that good. But what we need is flows of high technology, high value-added capital goods. The key to getting out of a depression, everywhere and always, restart exports of high-tech, high value-added, high energy intensity, high wage-associated capital goods. Now, the problem in the reform is the U.S. position is very acute. We've been deindustrialized. So we've got to look at that. Now, I imagine we're going to get back to this maybe one segment later.